The significance of that to me is that as a little boy growing up in Alabama, the people who most inspired me were these brothers doing stuff in the community. And I recently wrote a biography of my life for a project. And the thing that stood out was that I was inspired by these brothers who took it to City Hall. And I remember seeing that as a little boy. And I found the article, and it was when I was 3. So I don't know how a 3-year-old like encompassed this, but I saw these black men going to City Hall because of the issue of their power bill. And so that inspired me. I didn't know what it was until I looked at it again, but the point was I was inspired. And so when I met A.J. Ali and his team, I was even more inspired at the right time, because I had just been elected. This is before. So I met A.J. Ali before I moved to Howard County. I don't know if he even knows this, but he was doing a project, and it was at some little obscure place in Elkridge. And there was a event, and you were part of a reality show or something. And Jane was there, and but the point is, I was there for someone else who organized it, but you were there, and I remembered you. And a few, I guess, years, a month later, I met you at the mall. You were doing packaging gifts to raise money at the mall, and I was inspired by that, because I was like, wow. And I came back the next day or the same night and helped him to wrap packages, because he was raising money for a good cause. And again, I'm attracted to that. I didn't know that that energy that I was attracted to was basically love. He was vibrating love. He was doing work in something that he loved, and it inspired me to support him. And I've always done that without a doubt with anybody that I know were inspired by. But those are that's the background on how I know this brother, and I think we have been connecting in some way ever since then. But he was the first individual who used his ability, his advocacy, his dedication to entrepreneurship, and connected to advocacy. Now, I have taken the other route and just focused on advocacy, so I haven't made any money doing any of this.
Well, neither have I.
He'll say that. But he has been sustained better. But the point is that it takes all those brains to do it, but you can't do it. I recently picked up, again, the biography of Sam Walton. And his part of his genius, among all things, was that he had the philosophy that if he couldn't sell himself, he couldn't sell a product. And I want to stay on that for a minute, because in the case with what A.J. Ali has done is a reminder of that. If he can't sell himself, if he's not self-actualized, if he's not literally vibrating love, none of this really matters. And so it reinforces basically what I got to tell you today, and what I try to do with everything I do, and that's simply to use love as an organizing tool when we do this thing called community organizing. So you need service, and I'm convinced that if we don't have organizers, none of this happens. But you also need people who can be sustained in whatever they do if they love what they do. And you know what they say, if you love what you do, you don't have to, you're not working a day in your life. Mm-hmm. And so when you get into this reality of what we do, particularly with political engagement, this community organizing, even business, the reality is, and I want to remind you, y'all can say, yeah, that's right, that it is spiritual warfare about. Mm-hmm. And if you're not aware of that, and again, if you don't embrace this thing called love from a standpoint of how you're going to get up every day, it will tear you down. I want to acknowledge Nathaniel Austin, because without him even knowing it, he reminded me, I started my career in Washington, D.C., and I worked in the travel and tourism industry. And he reminded me of a place that I went to many times for one event or the other, and it was called the J.W. Marriott. And the significance of me bringing this up is that and those who have been around for years may know this, you may not. It was significant to Washington, D.C. because of what I'm about to tell you, and that was simply that when the J.W. Marriott was being built, and you can correct me on the timing, Ronald Reagan was elected, and J.W. Marriott was friends with Ronald Reagan. But simultaneously, there was a new sheriff in town at the local level of politics, and his name was Mayor Marion Barry, someone I love with all my heart, one of the few black Eagle Scouts. Long before he became mayor of Washington, D.C., he was somebody great. But the point I'm making about that is that he had a mentality of how to extend his power so it would help everybody. And what he said to J.W. Marriott when he wanted to build this multi-million-dollar, whatever, hotel that's still there today. I told this story walking by there Friday night from Hamilton's. Y'all know where Hamilton's is. And I was telling my friends this story because Nate Austin told me the story. And that was that when the hotel was being built, Marion Barry said that if you don't have a black general manager, it will not open. Your friend might be in the White House, but I control all of the codes in Washington, D.C. And so what I didn't know, and I knew the story about his strength in telling anybody who's making money off the city that if you don't have black architects, you don't have black engineers, you don't have black attorneys, we're not doing any business with you. And in this case, Nate Austin can tell you, Marriott didn't have a general manager anywhere in the whole company, in the world. So they had to time it and train a young man to be the general manager in the time period that it was going to take them to build it. When they opened, the moral to the story is it gave an opportunity not just for the general manager to be a part of a significant industry. Understand the tourism industry in Washington, D.C. It's going to be there, and I was there during the period of 9/11. It's going to be there if the bomb drops. So that movement toward seeing a future of creating economic development opportunities for people that he will never even know, he planted that seed. And then this notion of how we operate when you have political power or any kind of power, again, it gets back to not only should you vibrate love for yourself so that you can be inspired to do it, but your instinct for operating should be with the opportunities that you can create for others who you may never know. And again, J.W. Marriott is still there until this day. I was a part of the travel and tourism industry for, I guess, 6 years. The Washington Convention Center has not only is the general manager there African American, the tourism president and CEO of Visit DC is African American, the trickle down goes on. And I'm only bringing that up is that type of attitude would not have been sustained, in my view, without the instinct of one individual to say that we're gonna make opportunities for people in perpetuity. I wanna close with this. Oh, how many minutes we got?
You're good.
I wanna close with this because this is something, he mentioned that I work with the Office of the Public Defender, which is an arena in law that I didn't know anything about, because if you have never been jacked up and arrested, you don't know. But the reality is that it's a very significant career, it's a very significant display of people who are dedicated to working for people, again, that they don't know. The fact that you have to work for indigent clients and give them representation in a crisis is significant to everybody. So it made me understand, it combined my interest in specifically two things that I guess triggers parts of my life, because those who remember 1986, I think it was, when Len Baez, not only did he die, but he had just 2 days earlier had been signed with the Boston Celtics, and he was gonna be bad. He was gonna be a bad man. Boston was gonna be bad, all that, but it would not happen because of a drug overdose where he died because he snorted cocaine. There's a long history on that. The reason I bring that up is that I didn't realize it was an awakening for me at the time. Number one, because they flipped it in the area where I was from, and they made it into a crack overdose. And we know now that it was a cocaine overdose. The point in me bringing that up is that, one, someone wanted to frame the discussion for a reason, in this case, a political reason. And we know in this case that it worked to load crime bills, not just that one, because they created one because of his death that was punitive to people who sold drugs to people who happened to die. And my point in bringing that up is all those crime bills had worked to destroy black and brown and poor people ever since then, because of the structure. If you know anything about the history of systemic oppression, whether it's race-based systemic oppression or not, it has a long history from people in power to find a way to destroy people who might be a threat to you. I won't get on it too deep, but in the book of Exodus, there's a story about Pharaoh who felt intimidated by the overpopulation of Hebrews in Egypt. And everybody knows that story? When it happened, he said what? Kill the boy babies. And he told the midwives, but the midwives, that's why I like beautiful women, said, we honor God too much. We're not gonna do that. And we know the rest of the story with Moses and all this kind of stuff. I can get into it if you want to, but the point is, the history of systemic oppression is age old, and it has not stopped. And systemic oppression plays out here because all of these punitive laws that have been initiated, and I highlight L.O.V.E's story because it's fairly recent, and we all, based on your age, this is like Maureen Young, so she might not remember it. She might not remember it. It speaks to the power of political influence to do something. They exacted a law to destroy people. L.O.V.E died in June. They passed a law in October. My point is, if we use that type of expediency and shift it to love, we would have a better outcome. There's no good outcome to destroying heaps of any people when you have the power to do the opposite. And so we get 1986, L.O.V.E, and that bill, federal law that trickled down, and every time there's a federal law, it influences local and state laws. And it gets to the granular reality of where we are. And my only point is that if you had a spirit of love in doing it, we could talk about why did he do cocaine in the first place? What avenues can we implement, whether it comes to discussion about substance abuse, whether it comes to this conversation about whatever the social determinant of health that needs to be built up so that we can avoid 20-year-old dying from snorting cocaine. What was the situation? Why didn't we study that? The shift was to go after all of them because it was consistent with how we are influenced by the media until this day. And so we get that, we get the 1994 crime bill. I must add that today is the 30th anniversary of the signing of the 1994 crime bill. The significance of that to me today is that some of those policies within the 1994 crime bill are devastating us today. And one of those that's significant is this whole notion that you can charge teenagers as an adults. So if you have a mandatory minimum sentence and you have a teenager, whether that teenager is 15-year-old, then I'll say make a mistake, because I don't think that young people, I was young, I did a lot of stupid stuff. Luckily, I didn't do anything that would have triggered a mandatory minimum. But if I did, I would still be in prison today. And so if a 15-year-old is tried as an adult, they go into an adult prison. Is there a healthy outcome to that? Is there a way that you can have a Dickinsonian reality that comes from that? I pledge to you that there's no way you can get a positive outcome to that, because the destruction that goes from a mental health standpoint, physically trying to survive in a place that is, basically not set up for anybody's survival. And the younger you are, the smaller you are, the less connected you are, the more destructive that will be to you. We're doing a screening of the Ava DuVernay's film, The 13th Night, and it displays that, and it takes out a story about a brother named Khalif Browder in New York, where he was literally destroyed because now he wasn't even convicted. He was detained and held in an adult prison, and the mental breakdown caused him to eventually commit suicide. And so I don't bring that up to make you sad. I bring it up because it's a fact in this whole avenue of what we call this justice system in the United States that is set up to do exactly what happened to all these people. And I reinforce that because we have an opportunity to change it, particularly in the state of Maryland, when we look at everybody else in the world, because we have the highest income people, we got the best city in Columbia, we got the best crabs in Baltimore, we got the best beaches and all that. The reality is that if our policies don't create or stimulate some element that talks about love is a part of it, then we just like, I'll say, the state of Alabama. So I'm from there, I can talk about them. But the reality of that is we're second after Alabama. We incarcerate more teenagers than anybody else in the state of Maryland. So I bring that up to say that we need a shift at the community level so that we can all be on the same page about if we're gonna do policies, if we're gonna sell a movie, if we're gonna sell a book, let's sell it where it promotes love and creates an atmosphere that we can all celebrate because we're vibrating something that makes everybody feel good. I'm gonna close with that. I wanna thank y'all for the opportunity to speak, and I will turn it over to the man of the hour.